Hey, it's Beth again at Your Crafty Place. I thought today we would come back and do some more simple cards using the remainder of the paper from the last two cards that we made, where we did the Queen and Company's card templates that we got off of Pinterest. We used that one, and we came up with these two without using any dies. We just used our paper trimmer or scissors. And that's how we came up with these, and we had one stamp set that we used. So this time what I did, and I'm not going to give you measurements because this will kind of be, it kind of depend on how you cut your last paper and how much paper you have left over, but I basically just started cutting the paper down. So there were several of them where I took the paper and cut it at 4 inches, and then I was able to get the 5 1/4 inch paper, so it's the background. So I'm going to use, this is a lighter weight cardstock that I have made it look like a top fold card, and I use this a lot to just lay my pieces on just to see what they're going to look like. So I've done that with all of these. So I have just taken pieces that I cut, and I just cut them in different ways, and then I laid them together in different formats. This one, I had these little pieces left. I didn't want to throw them away, so I got a white piece and I used a spotted stamp for the background. And then I just did the method with the ink pad on the side. It was a Distressed Oxide ink pad that I used. It's this Distressed Oxide that I used, Salty Ocean. So that's the one that I used to do the background and then the edges. And then the only other ink that we're going to use is still the Memento Tuxedo Black. But I just took each one of these and laid them out. So some of them are full backgrounds, and then I got into ones where I just glued the pieces together. Previously I would have put them on black paper because this is just paper. So I would have wanted a little bit more substantial base to it, but I decided we're not going to do that. We're going to try and do this with a minimum amount of papers. So I just used those 4 sheets. There was the blue, the pink, the green, and then the floral sheet that we had to make those other cards. So I just used those and just cut them up. And I think there were a couple of slivers that I didn't use, but for the most part I've used them all. So I will now take these and put these down onto white card bases. You could use like a yellow, a blue. This was a primary school colors cardstock, I think, but it's a much thicker paper. It's just one piece, but it's, if you can see how much thicker it is. But we could use these, make card bases out of these, and then we would just put a piece of copy paper on the inside so that it was white, so that it was easier to write on, or I would, so that it was easier to write on. You wouldn't have to do that though, but you know, that would be a card base. That could be a card base. That looks more purple than blue, but it would be a nice card base. The yellow is kind of the same way. So like on these, if we wanted to do that on yellow, it really pulls out the yellow and those florals there. So I think this time what I'm going to do is go ahead and use some of those colored cardstocks to make card bases out of and glue these down. And then I'm going to use this stamp set, which is Simon Says Stamp Wild and Free. I got this sometime last year, I think. I think they have recently come out with the layering stencils that go with this, or I just recently saw the layering stencil and the die cuts. I do sometimes just use my silhouette to cut my dies, to cut my stamps out. I take a picture of them and scan them in, and then do a border around them and have my silhouette cut it. If you want to buy the dies and you have the die cutting machine, that's a great way to go. It's just the dies for me get very expensive, so I have done that on my silhouette. You can do it on your Cricut as well. You can take a picture of it and then kind of line it up and cut it out. I would recommend, just so you're not heartbroken if it screws up, cutting it out before you stamp it and color it. I have cut it out after I stamped and colored, and my machine messed up and sliced right through it. So Brother Scan and Cuts kind of do the same thing. You can scan them in and then cut them out. Or you can buy, like I said, if you have the die cutting machine, you can go ahead and invest in the dies if you want. But right now we're just looking at doing minimal things. You can also just fussy cut. I have stamped several of the sentiments on here, and then I just used pieces of white paper and cut them on here, and then we're going to cut these out. I also, just to see, I cut out the flowers here. We're not going to use those, I don't think. If we do, we might color them, but I don't think we're going to use them. I think we're just going to use the sentiments to keep this minimalistic, so you don't have to have too many supplies cards. So I am going to quickly put these, I think there's a total of 16 here. I'm going to put these on some card bases and cut out the copy paper, and I'll show you how I put the copy paper on this inside, because I do it a little bit differently just because it is thin and you can see everything that's behind it. So I will get everything cut, scored, folded. I'll get the card fronts glued on, and then we will come back and I will show you how we can do the inside of the card, and I will show you how I do the sentiments. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I have all of the card fronts on the card bases. This paper, it must be the whole paper stack, was a little bit more than 11 inches long. So whenever I scored at the 5.5, I had this little tiny bit of an overhang. They weren't perfectly, so I just took my trimmer when I was cutting them in half at the 4.25, and I cut them and cut that little sliver off of each one of them. So some of them were a little bit more than others, but that's probably, I probably didn't score them 100% correct, but that's what those are from, and you can set those aside and use those for things if you'd like, or throw them away. It's really up to you, but you can use them as, if you wanted to put them down on your card, you could use them as a decorative piece on your card instead of embellishments. I don't know if you can see that or not, but if you take that little strip and put it down on your card, or wrap it around or underneath, it gives you a little bit of size. And also cut the copy paper to 5.25 by 4, and then I'm going to put a piece down in each one of these card bases like this. Some of them are straighter than others because I stack them just to cut them all out at once. You can come back in with a coordinating color, ink pad, or maybe a alcohol marker, or anything that you'd like. Or if you wanted to put it down with washi tape, you could put it down with washi tape. I would probably trim it down a little bit if I was going to do it, if I was going to tape it down in here with washi tape. And if you don't know what washi tape, I have this kind of washi tape here. I could take this and use it to tape down on the sides and tape it down in here. So let's trim this a little bit here. You don't need scissors to trim it. I'm just using it for this initial one. What I would do normally when I'm cutting washi tape, like what I would do on this instance is I would take my washi tape, put it down on both sides of my paper. I have glue on my fingers, so from doing the card bases. So I'm going to take the washi tape and line it up. It doesn't have to be perfect because you can trim it. I then take something with a flat edge and use it to pull back on the washi tape, just pull it back, and that cuts it. And then I would turn it around, and maybe I wouldn't turn it around because then, yeah, I think I will. That way the red's on the outside on both of them. And I'm going to try to line it up again. And I think this is going to be too big for mine. I think it'll hang over the edge, but we shall see. So then I would only do 2 sides like that, and then I would stick it down in here like this, and then that would be your inside of your card base so that they could write on the inside on the white paper. Washi tape is not really sticky, so usually you can peel it up. It stays once you have it, but with most of the cardstock, it won't rip it. It is ripping my copy paper a little bit. We'll just tape it down on that side that it's ripping. Get this part up here. I do similar to tape it down in there. So I don't tape on all four sides usually when I do this. I usually will just take my tape dispenser. I use tape. I do not use glue because the glue, unless I press to get that glue really, really flat, it will leave bumps and ripples. I don't know. You really can't see it on here. Let's see if on one of these it's just the paper. I didn't add a lot, but you can see sometimes with the white copy paper, you can see the bumps from the glue. And you don't have to do the whole thing. If you're trying to conserve your tape, you can, you know, do little spots like this. And if you wanted to do one in the center, you could. I just do a little bit along the outside edges. It's not like it's going through the US Postal Service opened, so nothing's going to get stuck underneath it. If you don't have a tape dispenser like this, you can get rolls of double-sided tape like this off of Amazon. And you can do the same thing that we kind of did with the washi tape. So I'm going to lay this down. Use my block to kind of rip it. Come over here, do the other side. You can also use your scissors if you want to. And then lift off a little bit of that paper from the bottom there. Then burnish them down to make sure that they're down. And then you're just going to peel up that piece of paper, the release paper. So now you have sticky on both sides, and you will use that to come over here and place in your card base. You could, if you wanted to, stamp a sentiment on the inside, or stamp a greeting or something on the inside, or stamp a flower or a little bug, whatever you wanted. You could stamp something on the inside if you wanted just a border stamp. If you just wanted to do squigglies. If you wanted to keep some of this paper, you could put a piece of that down in there as well. So that is kind of how we do this. If you wanted to do glue, you could. I'm going to show you here. Do just a very, very thin line of glue. I mean, that is, I'll bring it up to the camera and show you. I really have to concentrate to get it that small. But like that blob there will probably show, but see how thin that line is on that side. And then just do that on the inside. And then, like I said, with this, just be sure you push down. You can sort of see, in person, you can see the line where the glue is. That's why I don't like it. It's not a big deal. It's just personal preference. So those are the different ways. You could also, if you wanted to, just do little dabs of glue in different spots. You wouldn't have to do glue all the way down. I started cutting up some of the sentiments that I had stamped already to put on here. I thought I would show you how I cut them. So again, let me clean this up a little bit so it's not too messy around here. So I use just scrap pieces of paper. So some of my paper is decent. Some of it, I would not put that on a card base. So I'm going to cut those up and get the jagged edges off of them. And then we will come back and do something more like this with the flags. And I have ink all over my fingers too from doing the stamping. So should have cleaned my hands before I moved on, but so I take this is a Tim Holtz, I think. Yeah, Tim Holtz Tonic Studios. This is the 6 by 8.5 inch trimmer. You can do this with the 12 by 12 trimmer. You could do it, I'll get the other trimmer out and show you how I do it. This one I need to tighten up the bolt that's over there on the side because this wants to keep falling down. But I don't know if you can see that here. I take a word, the bottom word, and then I figure out on my clear track here, where do I want that word to go? So here I'm looking at it, and since these are on weird pieces of paper, this is how I try to get it straight. I don't butt it up to the edge here because it may be that I don't have it stamped on the paper straight. I look at that word along this line and I make sure that word is pretty straight along my bar here. Now that one moved just a little bit, but I think we'll be okay because I think it moved down here where I had that little nubbin. So then I would do the same thing. I now have a straighter piece that I could line up here to cut off closer to the S for the sending. So I will cut that off and then I will turn it around and see where we are at here. Okay, doesn't look like I got anything on that one. I also find it easier when I'm doing these to come down here to the bottom and do it because I can see it much better down here if that word is lined up or not. So for me, it's easier to do these down here at the bottom. And now I'm just going to take a little bit off of this side. And then I would come back in probably and flag these. You could also just kind of eyeball your center here, trim, come back around and try and figure out maybe if you got the angle the same, if you think you're gonna cut this off about the same, move that up a little bit. Do I think that that will come off about the same? Maybe. I think I'm a little more than center there. So see, I didn't cut it perfectly, so now I'm going to come back in here and do that again. Or what I could do is take my scissors, and I don't think I was centered, so I'm going to take my scissors and kind of eyeball where I need to cut and just trim it down. And that's a little better. They're a little more lined up. It's kind of like the ones we did the other day. You can keep going back and forth to get them lined up, but eventually you're going to cut so much off that you won't have anything left. So sometimes you just have to call it and say that it's good. You could also, like there's a lot of white space right here, so we could come in here and decide we want to round this corner just a little bit if you don't have a quarter round punch, and just trim a little bit off. So now that one is a little bit different than the others because I'm not going to do both sides because I think the S looks fine. But now when I stick that down on here, I can either stick it directly down on there with the white, or I can line it with some black. I could line it with some yellow, some green, some pink. I could also just take an ink pad and ink up the edges. I could take a blending brush if I had a blending brush and kind of blend that in. I could take and do the stitch marks around it. There's a lot of different things that you could do with it. Use what you have. Don't think that you have to go get something else. If you have kids' Crayola markers, use them. This is not an archival thing. This isn't something that has to last forever. It's not going to ruin the image. They may fade a little bit over time, but these cards are probably not something someone is going to keep for decades and are not going to pass down generation to generation, so it will be okay. They do have the alcohol markers. They're just a little bit more pricey, so if you're just starting off, don't invest in them until you know you want to color. You could use a colored pencil and do some shading with the colored pencil on there. So you use what you have. Don't go out and spend a whole bunch of money until you know you're going to enjoy doing it and that you want to do it, because we all have our hobbies or our passions or our newest crave that we want to do, but if we're not going to stick with it, why spend all the money on it? So use what you have, see if you like it. If you like it, then yeah, start adding to your collection. Scrapbook.com has sales all the time. Alta New is another stamp company that has a lot. There's smaller ones out there as well that have sales all the time. There's some card kits. Spellbinders has a card kit. Let's see, Simon Says Stamp has a card kit. Gina K has a card kit. There's a bunch of different card kits as well. So there's a bunch of different ways that if you decide you like it, that you can get into it and go about it a little bit cheaper. So again, I'm just lining them up, looking at that side there and kind of lining up the longer pieces. This one's kind of already at a slant, so I'm just going to take it in here and slant it a little more. So now that one's done. And I could add some embellishments up that way if I wanted to. This one isn't bad, needs a little bit evening up along the sides, so I'm going to take this over here and leaving a lot more space on this one. I'm not lining it up. But then I kind of want to get about the same amount of space on this side. So that looks about the same. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's what makes it handmade. And then I'm going to turn it here and take just a little bit off of the top. Oops. But we're going to lay out a few here. This one I did use an embossing folder on, just to see what it would look like. So we're going to lay a few out. We have a total of 16. So if we start laying these out on here, just to see what they kind of look like. So now we have all of these, and we could just glue these down to the front, or we can use foam squares. So let's add the foam squares as a embellishment or as a thing that we're going to add this week. So the ones I get from the Dollar Tree, they're like this. They are the Crafter Square. They're in a roll, or on a roll, but they kind of look like this. But they're on a roll in the automotive. Use some of those. They are the $1.25 or $1.50, whatever they are now. And they are not a higher price. I'm going to switch to these. These are my Teflon scissors. I love my cutter bees for cutting things intricate or cutting the flags because they're so thin. These are a little bit thicker. I don't know if you can tell the difference here. How much thinner these appear to be than these, but these are non-stick. So I like these if I'm using foam tape or any kind of double-sided tape because it does not stick to it. So all I do, if I have the full roll, is I kind of take a piece that I think is long enough. If I don't have enough, then I will cut off another little piece. In this case, I cut it the wrong angle, so I'm going to take the backing off of that one and then put it down. You don't want, let me show you here. Let me get this one on here. Now again, I would normally use a little bit, it's kind of like with the stickers, I would use a little bit of glue on here because that gives you a little wiggle room. So right now, this is just the foam. It's double-sided. I'm going to stick it down on here, and I will show you that once I stick it down on here, let's do it up here. Once I stick it down on here, it's stuck. If I try to peel that off, it's probably for sure going to rip the paper. It may not rip my cardstock, but it's going to rip my paper. If I were to take this, and let's get some, we're going to take and put this one down in here. And I'm going to put this down on here. I'm not going to do it on the side. So I did it on the one side. Now I'm going to stick it down on my paper. As it goes through the mail, it's going to bend. I don't know if you can see how that bends because I don't have anything on that other side. So if it's in the mail and there's stuff crushing it, it's going to crush that and possibly have a crease in there. So you want to be sure when you're doing anything with pop-ups that you pop them up enough that there's enough support underneath it that it's not going to harm the integrity of whatever it is that you are popping up. A little bit's okay, like if I didn't get it all the way to the corner here, okay, probably not going to be noticeable, but if I only did half of it, a lot of people will only do like 1 or 2 for the entire background. And so then their center can be very, very squishy. Okay, I have all of the cards done, and I wound up using the strips from the sides of the card and just gluing them down on here. It looks like that one needs a little bit more glue underneath it. Gluing them down on here for the embellishments instead of getting any other embellishments. So if you ever have to trim off the card, you can use those little pieces. But here are all the cards, a total of 16 of them, all of them with the white on the inside. But they all have a piece of, or multiple pieces, glued down on them. And they all use that one stamp set, and the sentiment is just cut out a different way on each one of them. So there they all are. This one I did use that embossing folder on. This one, because the strip was so thin, I was able to kind of round it around the corner there to give it a little bit. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know this one wasn't completely all the way through. If you want the measurements to all the pieces that I have here, just let me know down in the comments and I will get those added. Otherwise, have a great afternoon or morning or day, whatever time it happens to be for you, and I will see you in the next one.